Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Modular. Today we're having a look at the knob technology SGR1806-20. Well, as you're undoubtedly aware, the SGR1806-20 is a neutron star, a style of neutron star out in the Sagittarius galaxy about 50,000 light years away, and its particularly unique feature is that it is bloody magnetic to the point that it bends space and time around itself and has blasted the entire galaxy with extreme emissions, the sort of things that would destroy everything that we know. And that's what this module is about. Well, kind of. It's a percussion module. It's a synthesizer. It's an analogue collection of voices, noises, waveforms and glitches stuffed together in order to give out a stream, to emit radio signals that go beyond alien landscapes into other realms, into other places. It not only kicks out a beat, it kind of transforms matter. It creates anomalies and finds itself just being a whole lot of fun. Inside this thing is a 3-core, 3 VCO oscillator cluster, I suppose, each of which is fighting for kind of supremacy and for life and light out from itself. None of it is particularly synchronized, and so just when you think you've got a sweet spot of stable waveforms, it then all just falls apart again because it's just not quite hanging on to each other. But this, I believe, is on purpose. You can take those oscillators and spread them about, spread them in frequency. So you sort of tilt it with the spread knob. One side pushes into high frequencies, the other pushes into low. They can then be fed into each other in a kind of a frequency modulation sort of way before they're then fed back from the output through back into I don't know, the other bit, the other bit that controls the other thing. And then you can push up the pitch, pull that back down again, beef it up through wavefolding, and then squirt it out through the distortion circuit into some kind of alien percussive landscape, I think. And then it also has 3 noise generators inside. These noise generators are basically like drunks at a party, just fighting over who gets to be the loudest. You can sweep through that from sounds like distant space asteroids through to a fax machine and back out again to some kind of system crash. It has an alarming array of these not very pleasant yellow buttons that pull in, that magnetize, I suppose, and attract the envelope. Because there's an envelope in here, just the one, but it does a lot of heavy lifting. In fact, in many ways, it's all about the envelope. The envelope is what brings it alive. It's what pushes everything to its peak and then drags it screaming back to Earth or to some other extraterrestrial planet. But of course, this is a percussion module, and it's a linear percussion module, so it's only really doing one sound at a time. And because of that, like so many other percussion modules in front of it, you have to modulate the heck out of it. And so this patch bay down the bottom gives you access to moving everything, because as you want that percussive line to come in, you don't want it to be the same sound. You want it to go from one sound to another sound to another sound to another sound, and this will do that beautifully. It's a heck of a lot of fun. It's lots of bright colours. It's a bit fiddly and you can't really read what the heck's going on, but it's mostly to do with experimentation. So, you could blindfold yourself and just play with it, and you will discover things that you had never thought of before. In fact, a lot of it is a voyage of discovery in that you very rarely do anything on purpose. I keep trying to find a kick drum and no, I don't really, and you just keep playing and then suddenly it's there and you go, well, I have no idea how I got to that. Or you try to find the snare in order to swap between the two and you have a similar experience. Or probably more excitedly is that I've often spent my time trying to get this perfect little click of rhythm going on that's varying and changing and interesting, and then just to open up the envelope a little bit and discover that there's an entire alien landscape just flapping around behind it in its wake, if you like, that I've completely ignored. So it's accidental as well as being an adventure in analog percussive synthesizing. I mean, it's very much, you could say, like the Basimilus Iteratus Ultra from Noise Engineering, but that's a digital module dealing with digital noise. This is very much analog. This has flavors of Buchla in there. It has flavors from other noise machines and drone machines. It can be an extraordinary textured space age synthesizer if you turn off all the rhythmic triggers and just play with it as a sound source, play with it as an investigation into how waveforms behave badly and that they are slightly out of your control. Just when you think you've gathered them together, no, it's going to go and wander off and do something else which you can't explain. But that is the nature of the cosmos, and it's certainly the nature of the SGR1806-20. I think I'm going to call it the SGR, if that's all right, if nobody minds, and I'll bring you in. We'll have a little poke around, see if we can work out what it does. So here we are then, the SGR. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Lots of interesting glowiness you get behind the front panel. The front panel is a bit of a mess, if I'm being honest. It's hard to read exactly what's going on. It takes a little bit of time to work out what all these bits are trying to tell you and where they're going. But we'll discover those sorts of bits along the way. But just as an example of what this thing does, it has this touchpad down here, so you can trigger it. So there you go. Some percussion. Some drums. But when you open up the envelope, as I say, you will find all sorts of things in here. Something along those lines. I could play with that forever. So, how should we start this then? I mean, I could run a bunch of triggers in and we could play with that, or it's probably better to just go through the basics so we can grasp what's going on, because there are two engines involved in here. There's a kind of a synthesizer, a VCO engine, and then there's a noise engine, and you're kind of mixing between those two in order to get your kick drums and your snare drums, or probably more likely your weird lowiness and your crazy more textured high frequency stuff. So see, there's a hi-hat just out of nowhere. So let me turn off the envelope and just put up the VCA, and I'll see if I can pull out some kind of sensible note from the VCOs. So the idea within the VCO is that there's three waveforms that are just out of sync. You're never going to quite find a perfect waveform. It's just not going to exist. At its most basic, you get that. With just a little bit of folding, it seems to give it a bit of beef, which is, you know, that's what you need. You need that sort of note. And then you've got the pitch that you can set, and then you've got spread, and what that does is that it reduces the frequency of the first oscillator in relative to the second and increases the third, or the other way around, depending which way you push it. So basically they get further apart. So you can absolutely put a tune into that, and it could sound a bit like this. So there are no end of textures that you can find in there. It's really weird when you push the spread to its extreme, because you get this high and you get this low. And something a little bit more together, and then going the other way. You've got FM, and what FM does is pushes 1 into 2 into 3, and then 3 back into 1 again. And of course that gets more interesting as you spread the oscillators apart. And feedback then takes some of the output and stuffs it into the 1 volt per octave, I think. To the point of complete destruction. Feedback overall I think is probably the most destructive part, but a little bit of everything. And it starts getting interesting. So I could bring this back to a bit of a tune. Then you've got the wavefolding here. Really does make everything lively. Depending on where else you are in the thing. But a little bit of wavefolding seems to be good at all times. And then at the end you've got distortion, which just kind of overdrives just nicely. I mean, it's extraordinary just like this. You know, you can just pump stuff, pull it, destroy it, bring it back. Alright. The other side is the noise engine. The noise engine, you get to that via this middle knob here, which mixes between your voice and your noise. So there's your noise. That sounds nice. You've got one control over your noise, which is the noise tone. Which goes all the way to there. The folding does something, some sort of phase shifting. And obviously the distortion acts on all of it. So you can mix between the two. But that's all going to get more interesting once you start pumping in triggers. Triggers. Oh, there we go. So all of these buttons, all these yellow buttons, essentially send the envelope to different things. So let's start a little bit of triggering on the envelope, just so we can experience some of that. So we're going to go from F, which is here. Neo Trinity is of course the perfect accompaniment to this module, because you've got modulation, so you can modulate the heck out of it, you've got triggers and patterns and all that sort of stuff going on. I'm just going to calm that down for a second. So there's our trigger going to our envelope, which at the moment is just running the VCA. But there's various things you can run it to. So for instance, the envelope depth here I can run into the pitch control. But then using any of these other buttons, I can route it to other stuff. So to the spread, to the FM, to the folding, to the distortion, to the sweep of the noise tone, and then to the mix between the two itself. Why is it doing that? I have no idea. So as you can see, it's a noise generator. It's a creature of incredible, bizarre textures. So let's put in a bit more of a rhythm and see whether we can tease out some linear drums. Some drums in a way that you would expect from something like the Wobbler 2 or the Bassimilus or heck, or the Mutant Machine. So let's see if we can start off with a bit of a kick. So there, very simply, I've just calmed everything down to give us a bit of a kick drum, and then what I'm going to need to do is move this knob to give us the snare alternative. So I need to take something like a square wave. If I go to channel C, go to LFO, make that a square wave. If I plug that into the mix, that should do what's required. If I liven it up a little bit with some more triggers. might be better if I stick in a bunch of envelopes. And then similarly I could put in something to control the decay of the envelope. And then you just play. I'm not sure there's anything more to say, really. You do get an envelope out, so you can take out the envelope and use it somewhere else, if you so wish. Everything else is an input, and it's just a matter of exploring, pressing buttons, moving stuff about, see if you can find the things that perhaps are more interesting than other things. Or you can just take it down to a little hi-hat without knowing the immense world of stuff going on. In the background. As you try to tune your way into some alien space radio. So there you have it. The SGR1806-20. What a barrel load of laughs that is, yeah. I mean, it's just fun to play on, you know, all by itself without having to pump in rhythms or having to think too deeply about it. You can just play and get some spacey, crazy ass noise out of it. I mean, I used it in the EMOM I did the other week, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing with it. I just had it going in and it just kept bubbling up to make these sort of throbbing, warbling things that then descended and disappeared, and they just fitted in beautifully. I wasn't doing anything, I was just twisting a couple of knobs, and it just found this special effect that threw itself throughout my set. It was just great. But using it as a drum source, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, that's all, of course, assuming that you want crazy analog and synthetic weirdness going on in your set. If you're after samples, this is not for you, obviously. This is a synthesizer, it's analog, it's using triangle chords which are smashing into each other to create this vibe, this noise, this scratching of whole realities being torn apart, and then you modulate the heck out of it in order to flip-flop it between low sounds, high sounds, crushing sounds, sizzles and rasps back to booms and clangs. The way that it frequency modulates itself into other realms is just bizarre. And then you can crush it all with the feedback. You know, if you think it's sounding too normal, just destroy it with a turn of the feedback knob, which is actually the only thing you can't modulate. Doesn't have a CV input, so that's one for yourself. As I say, the front panel is not for me particularly awesome because I found it really hard to read, and the yellow is not thrilling me particularly. But I mean, heck, it's an interesting design on the front, I will certainly say that. It's just that the writing is difficult to pick out, and it's sometimes hard to see which socket it is that it's really referring to. But hey, those are small things once you start to find your way around it. But it's an incredible source of sound and textures and weirdness. And I hope to keep it around, I think. I wonder whether it's too overwhelming, whether it sort of becomes everything within your set when you use it. Can it fit in nicely? I mean, I dropped in a bass line which, you know, it just goes really nicely with that, without any doubt. I wonder, you'll have to become a master of it to really sort of coax it down to almost nothing and then bring it back out again. I think in using the modulation well, so turning things on and off, I mean, muting things from the Neo Trinity works quite well. You take out triggers and then put triggers in. Not necessarily triggering the trigger, although of course you are, but triggering envelopes, stuffing envelopes into it and making those happen and then bringing those away, because those envelopes push those parameters around to find those alternative sounds. So I mean, I seem to have half a dozen different rhythms going on, competing and fighting with each other, which was really interesting as I just explored. And every time I sit down and experiment with it, I find something new and suitably bonkers. So yeah, I think that's probably enough to say about that, fella. Good fun if you're into that sort of thing. A great exploration of noise and tone and texture and space age wobbly wibbly blops. Hope that's useful. In the meantime, go make some tunes.